Every woman wants to be cherished, respected, and seen for the incredible value she brings into a relationship. But what if I told you that many women, without even realizing it, are doing things that slowly erode that value in the eyes of the man they're dating? It's not about how beautiful you are, how successful you've become, or even how much you love him. It's about how you show up. Because the way you carry yourself, the standards you hold, and the boundaries you enforce, those are the real markers of value. In this talk, we're going to break down 4 silent behaviors that might seem small but have massive impact. These aren't just mistakes. They're patterns that, if left unchecked, can make even the most amazing woman feel invisible in the presence of a man. But here's the good news. Once you're aware of them, you can change them. And when you do, everything changes, not just how he sees you, but how you see yourself. Let's dive in. You meet someone new. There's that spark, that magnetic pull that makes you want to be near him, talk to him, learn everything about him. It feels exciting, thrilling even, and before you know it, you're pouring yourself into the connection. You're texting first thing in the morning, rearranging your schedule to fit his, going out of your way to please him and putting in 110%, all while he's maybe giving 40. And in your mind, you're just being loving, available, and showing how much you care. But in reality, what you're doing is over-investing way too early, and without realizing it, you're slowly killing your perceived value. The problem isn't that you're loving or thoughtful. Those are beautiful qualities. The problem is the timing. Real connection is built on mutual investment, on 2 people who are equally curious, equally available, equally committed. But when you start giving more than he's ready to receive, when you lean in while he's still leaning back, you create an imbalance that throws everything off. It's not that he doesn't appreciate the kindness, it's that he hasn't earned it yet. And people don't value what comes too easily. Think about it like this. When someone hands you a gift for no reason, without context, without any effort on your part, you may say thank you, but deep down you don't feel moved. You don't feel connected to the act. But when you've spent time building something, investing emotionally, showing up for someone, and then they do something thoughtful, it lands differently. It means more. But all about the guy doing it. Because there's context, there's depth, there's emotional equity. That's the mistake so many women make in the early stages of dating. They skip the part where the man proves himself. They rush past the part where he gets to wonder about her, chase her a little, feel the excitement of building something slowly. Instead, they hand him everything up front: attention, affection, time, emotional labor, and they call it love. But it's not love. It's anxiety disguised as connection. It's fear dressed up as effort. It's the belief that you have to do more in order to be more in someone's life. And that's just not true. When you overinvest, you're also putting yourself in a position where you're constantly seeking a return on that investment. You're waiting for him to text back faster, plan dates, match your energy, because deep down, you know you're doing the most. And when he doesn't, it hurts. It feels personal. You start questioning your worth, not realizing that the pain isn't coming from rejection, but from misalignment. You gave too much too soon. And now you're holding someone accountable for a standard you set without consent. High value behavior means you don't audition for someone's affection. You let things unfold. You give in balance. You don't rush to prove you're worthy of love. You let them discover that for themselves. A man who is truly interested in you doesn't need to be overwhelmed with your effort to recognize your value. He'll feel it in your presence, your energy, your boundaries, your self-respect. But if you throw everything at him in the first few weeks, you take away the mystery, the space, and the opportunity for him to show up and match your energy. Over-investing can also lead to something deeper, resentment. When you're the one always initiating, always planning, always giving, there comes a point where it feels exhausting. Not because giving is wrong, but because giving without reciprocity drains your spirit. And when that happens, it's not just your value that's diminished, it's your joy. You begin to associate relationships with effort, exhaustion, and proving yourself, instead of alignment, mutual care, and ease. The irony is, most women who overinvest don't do it out of weakness, they do it out of strength. They're caretakers, givers, lovers. They've got big hearts. But without boundaries, even the purest intentions can backfire. It's not about becoming cold or distant. It's about being discerning. It's about protecting your energy and understanding that your presence is already enough. You don't need to overextend to be seen. You don't need to chase to be chosen. You are the prize, not the pursuer. So the next time you feel the urge to go all in too soon, pause. Ask yourself, has this man earned this part of me yet? Is he showing consistent effort? Is he investing in me emotionally, mentally, and energetically? If the answer is no, then take a step back, let the connection breathe, let him come forward. Because your value isn't in what you give, it's in how you carry yourself. It's in your standards, and when you honor those, you don't just raise your value, you attract someone who sees it, respects it, and rises to meet it. When you're drawn to someone, it's natural to want to spend more time with them. You want to know them, grow closer, and feel that sense of connection deepen. But there's a fine line between building intimacy and losing yourself in someone else's world. And far too often, women begin to dim their own light the moment they start catching feelings. They gradually start stepping away from the things that once made them come alive. Their passions, their goals, their routines, their friendships, all in the name of making room for him. What starts as compromise becomes self-abandonment, and that's when the value you bring into a relationship begins to quietly erode. One of the most attractive qualities anyone can have is a full, vibrant life. A life that excites them, that they're proud of, that they don't need to escape from. When you are deeply engaged in your own life, when you're chasing your goals, spending time with people who uplift you, and nurturing your own growth, you radiate an energy that is magnetic. It shows that your happiness is not dependent on anyone else, that you are whole, not waiting for someone to complete you. And that's the kind of energy that draws high quality people in. But when you start pulling away from the things that made you you, that light begins to fade. Maybe you skip the gym because he wants to hang out. Maybe you stop seeing your friends because you want to be available in case he calls. Maybe you pause your side hustle or creative work because your emotional bandwidth is now being spent trying to figure out where the relationship is going. But first, these seem like small compromises, but they add up, and over time they send a message, not just to him, but to yourself, that his life matters more than yours. It's not just unattractive to a man when a woman loses her sense of self. It's unsettling. At the beginning, he might enjoy the attention, the availability, the way you seem so focused on him, but eventually it starts to feel like pressure. It feels like the relationship has become the center of your universe, and that's a heavy role for anyone to play. No one wants to feel like they're responsible for your happiness. When a man senses that your world is starting to shrink around him, the dynamic shifts. You no longer feel like a partner, you feel like a dependent. And that kills attraction faster than almost anything else. A strong relationship isn't about two people merging into one life. It's about two people building a bridge between two lives that are already rich and fulfilling on their own. When you bring a full, thriving life into your relationship, you give it room to breathe. You keep your identity intact. You maintain a sense of independence that keeps you grounded and confident. And most importantly, you don't lose sight of your personal joy, which is essential, not just for your value, but for your peace. It's important to remember that a healthy relationship should add to your life, not take it over. Yes, there will be compromises. Yes, your schedule might shift a little. That's normal. But if you find yourself slowly morphing into someone else, if you start to feel disconnected from the things that once brought you joy, that's a red flag. A good man will never ask you to shrink. He will want to see you thrive. He'll be inspired by your drive, your passions, your fire. And if he isn't, if your growth threatens him, that's not your person. That's your warning. So keep going to your dance class, keep building that business, keep showing up for your friends, keep pursuing the things that light your soul on fire. Because that version of you, the one who's fully alive, fully expressed, and fully independent, is the most powerful version of you there is. And that's the woman who naturally commands respect and admiration without ever having to demand it. When you prioritize yourself, you're not being selfish. You're being smart. You're creating a relationship where you remain at the center of your own life, which is exactly where you belong. And from that place of grounded wholeness, you'll attract someone who doesn't want to consume your world, but wants to walk beside you in it, proud of the woman you are and the life you refuse to give up for anyone. Determination to the meeting generally shows up all at once. It starts quietly in the little things. Maybe he cancels plans last minute without offering to reschedule. Maybe he teases you about something personal in front of others, brushing it off as a joke. Maybe he dismisses your opinions, interrupts you constantly, or shows up late without apology. In the beginning, you might let it slide. You tell yourself he's tired, he's stressed, maybe he didn't mean it that way. You rationalize it, justify it, even excuse it, because you're trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. But what you're really doing is teaching him how to treat you. And each time you tolerate disrespect, no matter how small, your value in his eyes quietly diminishes. The truth is, people pay attention to the boundaries you enforce. If someone knows they can get away with giving you the bare minimum or treating you poorly without consequence, they will. Not necessarily because they're a bad person, but because human behavior follows patterns. What you allow is what will continue. And the moment you start letting disrespect slide, whether it's inconsistent communication, emotional manipulation, or even subtle digs, you send a clear message. My standards are negotiable. There's a dangerous myth that love means unconditional acceptance, that if you truly care about someone, you should be endlessly patient, forgiving, and understanding. But that's not love. That's self-sacrifice. Real love includes accountability. It's okay to give someone grace, especially if they're going through something, but grace without boundaries turns into self-betrayal. It teaches someone that your feelings are optional, that your needs can wait, that your comfort isn't a priority. And once that dynamic is in place, it's incredibly hard to reverse. What makes this even more damaging is that it chips away at your self-worth, one incident at a time. You may not notice it immediately, but over time you start to question yourself. You start walking on eggshells, trying not to trigger him. You stop voicing your opinions because you don't want to upset him. You tolerate emotional distance, vague answers, or disrespectful behavior because you're afraid that if you speak up, you'll lose him. But the real loss already happened the moment you stopped honoring your own voice. A high-value woman understands that her boundaries are not walls, they're filters. They're not meant to keep love out, but to let the right kind of love in. She doesn't tolerate being treated like an afterthought because she knows she's not one. She doesn't excuse bad behavior in the name of potential because she's focused on reality, not fantasy. And she doesn't stay silent just to keep the peace because she knows that peace without honesty is just a slow form of emotional decay. It's important to recognize that your standards are a reflection of how you see yourself. If you believe you're worthy of kindness, consistency, and respect, you will demand those things and you will walk away when they're not given. But if you're still unsure of your worth, you'll accept crumbs and try to bake a cake with them. You'll call love, but it will feel more like survival. The more you try to earn someone's respect by shrinking yourself, the less they'll see you as someone worth rising for. Disrespect doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it's subtle. The way he dismisses your accomplishments, mocks your dreams, or ignores your emotions. But the impact is just as deep. And the only way to change that pattern is to stop tolerating it. Speak up, call it out, and if it continues, leave. Because every time you accept less than you deserve, you lose a little more of yourself. And no relationship is worth that kind of loss. You don't teach people how to love you by loving them harder. You teach them by loving yourself harder, by knowing what you bring to the table and refusing to let anyone make you feel like it's not enough. Respect isn't something you should ever have to beg for. It's something that should come naturally in the presence of someone who truly values you. And if you're not getting that, it's not your job to work harder. It's your cue to walk away. At the end of the day, the way someone treats you is a reflection of what they think they can get away with. And the way you respond is a reflection of what you believe you deserve. So raise your standards, enforce your boundaries, protect your peace. Because when you hold yourself to a higher level of self-respect, the world and the people in it will rise to meet you there. Seeking validation is something almost everyone has done at some point in their lives. It's a deeply human desire to feel seen, affirmed, wanted. But when that need for validation becomes the source of your emotional security, especially in a romantic relationship, it begins to strip away your power and your value in a man's eyes. At first, it might seem harmless. You ask him what he thinks of your outfit, you fish for compliments, or you check in constantly just to feel connected. But over time, that pattern reveals something much deeper. You're not just looking for reassurance, you're outsourcing your self-worth. When a man senses that your confidence depends on his opinion of you, it changes the dynamic. The balance of energy shifts. He no longer sees you as the strong, grounded woman he was initially drawn to. He starts to feel like he holds the emotional steering wheel in the relationship. And that kind of pressure is unattractive and unsustainable. Men are not emotionally wired to be your constant source of approval. They can appreciate you, admire you, even love you deeply. But if your sense of worth hinges on whether or not he's giving you enough attention, affection, or praise, it becomes exhausting for both of you. What makes this even more damaging is that it puts you in a cycle of emotional dependency. You start craving his validation the way someone craves a fix. When he gives it to you, you feel high. When he pulls away, you spiral. You read into every word, every emoji, every delay in response. You overanalyze, overthink, and try to decode his behavior to answer one burning question. Am I still enough for him? But that question reveals the real issue. The moment you need someone else to tell you you're enough, you've already forgotten that you always were. High-value individuals operate from a place of internal validation. They don't need someone to constantly remind them of their worth because they've already done the inner work to believe in it themselves. They may enjoy being appreciated or acknowledged. It feels good, of course, but their confidence doesn't collapse when those affirmations aren't. And that's what makes them magnetic. There's a quiet strength in someone who doesn't chase approval because it shows they've already approved of themselves. Constantly seeking validation can also lead to self-abandonment. You start changing yourself to earn someone's affection. You hide your true opinions, agree with things you don't really believe, or try to mold yourself into the kind of woman you think he wants. But in doing that, you slowly lose touch with who you really are. You trade authenticity for approval, and that's a price far too high to pay. Because no matter how much validation you get, it will never feel fulfilling if you had to shrink or bend to receive it. There's also something unattractive about emotional neediness. Not because needing love is wrong, but because the energy behind the need feels heavy. When someone needs constant reassurance, it creates pressure. It makes the relationship feel less like a partnership and more like a balancing act. A man doesn't want to feel like he's walking on eggshells, constantly having to reassure you just to keep you emotionally stable. That doesn't build intimacy, it builds resentment. And what could have been a healthy, loving connection begins to crumble under the weight of insecurity. One of the most powerful shifts you can make is learning how to validate yourself. That means becoming the source of your own approval, telling yourself you look beautiful before he says a word, trusting your own intuition instead of always second guessing, standing firm in your values even when they're not validated by others. When you show up like that, you radiate a different kind of energy. It's calm, centered, and deeply self-assured. And that energy doesn't just attract attention, it earns respect. It's okay to want to feel loved and appreciated. That's natural. But your emotional stability should never be tied to how often someone compliments you, texts you, or reassures you. Because here's the truth. Even the most loving and attentive partner will have off days. They'll be distracted, busy, tired. And if your worth is built on how they treat you in every moment, you'll be on an emotional roller coaster you can't control. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be emotionless, but you do have to take responsibility for your self-worth. That means filling your own cup so you're not constantly looking for someone else to pour into you, because when you know your value, you stop chasing attention. You stop needing proof. And instead of asking, do you still love me? You start showing up with the energy of, I love me and I'm inviting you to meet me there. That's the kind of energy that not only keeps your value high, it changes the entire relationship.